Well, hello there, guys and girls. Today we are watching a movie. This movie, to be precise. Can you see it? Salo, or the 120 Days of Sodom. Whatever that means, you know. This is one of the most disturbing films ever made, apparently. It's a controversial film. This is the Criterion. You might have noticed, yeah. This is a special Criterion one, Criterion number 17. So quite an early Criterion, one of the first Criterion people or whatever. I've heard a lot of people talk about this film. I have vague recollections of what it's actually all about. I just know it's pretty disturbing. Apparently, it's based on a true story or based off what could have been true events. It's directed by a man called Pier Paolo Pasolini. I don't think I've seen another film of his. Forgot what nationality Pier Paolo Pasolini is, so I'm just looking it up on my phone. He's Italian. He was Italian, yeah, and I thought so. Sounds Italian, doesn't it? This film has been on my watch list for a long time now, perhaps 2 years maybe. Just all around a very infamous, famous film, but not to be viewed lightly. Not for the faint of heart, apparently. I wouldn't say as a viewer I'm particularly desensitized to disturbing shit. I'm kind of like in the middle. I've seen a fair few disturbing films and they are quite intense. Like, I don't revisit them often. I've got these films like Come and See and Irreversible where I'm like, okay, that was a good film. That was a really good film. I appreciate all of the filmmaking behind it. But I never want to watch that again, or at least for another 10 years. Maybe I am an edgelord, I don't know, but I'm just very interested to see this. And I thought it'd make for a funny video, you know. Not doing any reactions or anything, but I am going to take this film seriously and be critical as I usually am, even though I'm being goofy here. As you can see, it's still in its plastic wrap, you know, I haven't opened it. Been waiting for a special occasion. So yeah, we can do a live, well not a live opening, but yeah, I'm going to unbox it now for you guys. Make sure it's in fucking camera, because you can only do it once, you fucking idiot batcho. Yeah, oh, is it in focus? Yeah, I'll just, ooh, not the parting of the vaginal walls. Fucking hell. Ah, yes. Now it is free. I can breathe the cool air. Ooh. Criterions are quite expensive, but they are really good. You get whole booklets of behind the scenes and information and all that. I've got these Criterions and it's piling up the amount of booklets I need to read through of the behind the scenes stuff for all these different films. Look at that fucking dickhead there, like madman, like Dr. Eggman. No, we're not. Don't turn this niche film viewing experience into some broad Sonic the Hedgehog shit, Sean, batcho. I do also know a little bit about what sort of stuff is in here, so some of it won't necessarily be a surprise in terms of what happens, certain things that happen, but it's more about seeing the way it's done yourself, seeing the film yourself. It's like when I watched Come and See, I knew a little bit about what happened in that, and I also knew a little bit about what happened in Antichrist. But still, until you've seen it for yourself, you can't really say you've had that experience. As of right now, I'm fairly eager to begin to put this in, to put it in the disc slit. Does anyone call it the disc slit? Maybe a little bit nervous. I don't know how this will affect me, if it'll just be a bunch of silly edgy shit or it actually will have a visceral impact on me. Who knows? I've also got quite the cold on me at the moment. I've got a bad cough and also my sinuses are just acting up. I don't know, there's a lot of pressure there and that can make the film watching experience a lot more intense for me when I've got sinuses because it just makes you feel like there's some presence. It just puts you in a bit of a worse mood, a more vile mood sometimes. Just makes the world around you feel a little more dark and twisted. Well, I guess now I'm going to put the film in. See you in 116 minutes where I'll give you my initial impressions right after watching it. So yeah, see you then. Have a good day in the meantime. So yeah, I've finished the film now. Yeah, it was pretty fucked up in a lot of places. A lot of graphic, explicit shit happening there. Very ahead of its time for the 70s in that regard. Definitely a lot of shocking shit, oh my god, that was oh, they went there. Yeah, it definitely went to places. It definitely was unflinching in a lot of departments in terms of what it wanted to show. Unfortunately, and this is just my first impressions, remember, I just don't think it was all in service of anything particularly deep or philosophically rich. It's the fucked up shock value was the only thing that this film had to offer. It had one fairly simplistic point about fascism and how powerful powerful people can dehumanize others, tyrannical institutions and whatnot. It definitely achieved its goal at showcasing a lot of like fucked up, degenerate stuff, sexual degeneracy, sexual abuse, rape, just all around torture. But that's what this entire film is. It's just like seeing a bunch of people in this big manor getting tortured for 2 hours. The villains, the antagonists, the people doing the torturing, just a bunch of rich people in power, are fairly one-dimensional and just like vague, oh, we're fucked up and evil because we're fucked up and evil. Not very interesting, nothing like stimulating there. Like maybe if we understood more about why they were like that, it would have been more interesting. There was a lot of attempts by this film to be like philosophically rich. These like fucked up bourgeoisie characters were always having these like philosophical conversations about like, oh yeah, sexual pleasure and all this stuff. And it just all just fell flat for me. They were just doing a bunch of fucked up things, then droning on about how they were doing the fucked up things and all like trying to be all philosophical about it. One other crucial issue was that the victim characters, all of the victims, there's a bunch of girls and there's a bunch of boys, all young adults. You didn't really feel like you were with the characters. None of them had much of an impression. They were all fairly weak actors. Or flat actors, and the performances of the victims, they were just downplaying it, given what the horrible things that were happening to them. It was just like, you wanted a really like visceral, three-dimensional performance to convey that to you, so you'd actually get disturbed, and that didn't really happen. It was just like, okay, this fucked up thing's gonna happen to you, and you're gonna scream for a bit, and then the next scene's gonna happen. Pacing-wise, it was very stagnant and repetitive. It all took place in this one room. However, that probably wouldn't have been a problem if there was more to dissect within the themes of this film. Instead of just, oh, we're doing a bunch of fucked up things and we're going to talk about how we're going to do a bunch of fucked up things. Oh yeah, humanity can get real bad, and yeah, sure, it shows that. But it could have been a short film, honestly. And yeah, again, nothing special about any of the performances, and all the characters felt one note. I don't want a film to be fucked up just for the sake of it. I want it to be fucked up with like a really good artistic purpose. And there was a lot of purpose behind like why this film was covering the topics it was, or showing the content it was. But honestly, throughout most of that, I was just fairly bored. I was a bit more on board with the film in the first 40 minutes or so. There was just a lot of fucked up shit happening. It's a bit hard to be bored when there's that sort of stuff being shown. It just never really led to anything. I did like how this film opened and closed with the same music. This nice, fanciful, upbeat music, obviously a juxtaposition. And even though I was saying it was very graphic, I think a lot of like the imagery of like people being used as like cattle or like sex slaves when they're just stripped naked, that worked. Because that was believable because they were just naked. But when it got to the infamous shit-eating scene, which I had heard about, I knew that was coming. Honestly, it wasn't that effective just because like it looked like chocolate. It really didn't resemble shit at all, and I didn't really care about the characters. I know it sounds cruel, but I was just like, yeah, whatever. Guy hunches down, it cuts, and then there's just a piece of like chocolate on the floor. It's like, okay, that's supposed to be shit, I guess. So some of the fucked up stuff that was supposed to be really shocking, it wasn't simulated well. Like, it didn't feel real. There was some pretty gory stuff towards the end in terms of like torture and like mutilation and stuff. Some of which was impactful, but by that point I was fairly checked out of the film and I was ready for it to end. The film's got a point to it, but it's just a very simplistic point that it repeats ad nauseum for 2 hours. I kind of just wanted to tell all the characters to shut the fuck up. Like, I don't care, stop being edgy. I really thought it was horrible and ghastly when that guy got his prosthetic eye cut out, his like plasticine eye. That was really fucked up. I wanted that to be like an avant-garde masterpiece, but just being shocking in one category of film isn't enough to be like an amazing movie. Isn't enough to be like a sensational piece of art. There just wasn't much profundity to the story and the message. It's definitely one of the weaker films in the category of like edgy, fucked up films that are really controversial, like Come and See and Irreversible. Irreversible, like a very sensational film, you could argue, but that had like very three-dimensional, compelling characters you were following. Also just a very gripping plot. There's of course the sequence in the middle of it, but that isn't all it's got. It's kind of structured around it, but it's not all 100% all the substance, so to speak, is from there. It's coming from there. But yeah, that's Salo for you. It's based off a novel written in the 1800s, and in this film they updated it so it was set during World War II in Italy, like fascist Italy. I reckon like if done just slightly differently, this could have been really much better. It's just if all you have is edgy shit, it just gets really just boring very quickly. It wasn't like that awful. I'm still going to give it props for like going to the places it did, even though some of it didn't look that convincing anyway. If I had liked that film a lot more and found it a lot more interesting, I probably would have gone and done a much more comprehensive review with this video. But honestly, I'm not really that sure if I've got that much else to say. I'm glad I watched it, I guess. Definitely challenging in its own way. In terms of recommending it to people, well, First of all, the only sort of people I'd recommend it to are, I guess, edgelords, or people who are interested in exploring all the different facets of film. I definitely don't recommend it to people who are just casual watchers. It's more for the people who like exploring like film history and all of the different niche films that were made. If you like 70s films and all of like the avant-garde stuff that came from that era, it was a very revolutionary era for film. But there are some much better examples than this, like Clockwork Orange for one, that's behind me there, and films like Performance, that are like trippy and weird and kind of fucked up, but also have like enough thematic substance behind them. It's hard to pinpoint. I wouldn't say anyone really needs to rush out and see this. I feel like the only people that I'd recommend this to would have probably heard about this film already. You know, it's just a bunch of edgelords and film students. I'm thinking about Pink Flamingos, which I watched a few weeks back, and that is kind of just about, hey, here's a bunch of fucked up shit, and that's the whole joke of the film. But that sustained my interest for the whole runtime, even though it's very similar in terms of what it's going for to this. But that's just much more aware, and also it's very funny, and the characters are probably much more entertaining, and it isn't as stagnant. So I'd probably recommend Pink Flamingos, actually, because I didn't talk about that on the channel when I watched that. Yeah, Pink Flamingos is a funny ride. I'd recommend that. So yeah, that was that. That was Salo. I hope you enjoyed this video. I do want to cover other films like this, like niche, avant-garde films from the 70s and different eras, but not just like this. I'd want to cover them in like very comprehensive fashions, like 40-minute style videos or even longer perhaps. Because there are a lot of films from back then that I do absolutely love and like I've got a lot to say about. But then again, if I'm off reviewing stuff like Bella de Jour, who's going to be reviewing She-Hulk, you know? Someone's going to do it. No, I'm not reviewing She-Hulk, don't worry. All that fucking shit. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and yeah, we're sponsored by Skillshare and all that shit. Carson Runquist, bye. Carson Runquist probably wouldn't have liked that because there weren't that many colours in it, and he's all about colours. If a film has his favourite colours in, he likes it, but if he doesn't, he dislikes it, and he gives it a thumbs down on Letterboxd or whatever, because he's a sociopath. Anyway, that's me, bye.